I was shopping around for the right frame to gift my friends who just got married because I had the cutest photo of them. The FrameBridge website made it so easy to preview options that I slipped in a photo from my trip to Japan for myself too. Now they've got a wonderful memory of their wedding, and I've got a new favorite piece of art in my house. FrameBridge has a curated selection of frame styles and design experts to make it fun and easy to frame what you love for the people you love. Visit framebridge.com or your local FrameBridge store at 1200 Villa Place in Edge Hill to start framing. Today on CityCast Nashville, as of yesterday, plans are official. Nashville will soon be home to the Music City Loop, Elon Musk's Tesla tunnel that will connect the airport to downtown. Joining me and executive producer Whitney Pasterek is a very special guest, CityCast Las Vegas host David Figler. He's here to share how the first iteration of this tunnel is working, or not working, in Vegas. It's Tuesday, July 29th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. So we are taping this on Monday evening, right after a press conference where Governor Bill Lee and Elon Musk's The Boring Company announced the construction of a tunnel connecting downtown and Nashville International Airport, aka BNA. Whitney, what are the details?
Airport Authority President Doug Crulin welcomed an all-star roster of state and local officials to the BNA Hilton on Monday afternoon to announce the Music City Loop, a tunnel constructed by Elon Musk's The Boring Company that will connect downtown and the airport. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee touted it as an exciting announcement for Nashville and for the state of Tennessee, saying it brought to mind his State of the State address in which he said 2025 should be the year we think bigger. Multiple speakers, including U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, claimed that the loop would be 100% privately funded at no cost to Tennessee taxpayers. The loop, Duffy said, will be fast and safe, transporting people in 8 to 10 minutes between downtown and BNA, and that it will be finished in 2 years. Steve Davis, president of The Boring Company, claimed that they try to build stations less than 100 feet from the front door of their destination, in this case the airport, and that they are doing this with the hope to expand into neighborhoods. He said to select a location, The Boring Company looks for 2 things. 1, the system has to be useful, and 2, the community has to be welcoming. He said that while our bedrock makes Nashville a tough place to tunnel, the welcoming case is, quote, a home run. The Boring Company plans to host a job fair tomorrow, Wednesday, and that if they don't make more than 50 job offers this week, they will consider it a failure. Here's what we don't know as of the time of this recording. Where in downtown the tunnel will start. Where, other than under Murfreesboro Pike, which is owned by the state, the tunnel will travel. And where, at the airport, within that 100 feet, will it emerge from underground.
I know you spent the weekend reporting on what local leaders knew about this prior to the announcement. What did you learn?
Not much, Marie. Most of my official emails to various departments asking for details went unanswered. Mayor Freddie O'Connell referred me to his earlier statement from last week, saying, "We are aware of the state's conversations with the Boring Company, and we have a number of operational questions to understand the potential impacts on Metro and Nashvillians." I did notice that in the press conference, Governor Lee thanked Mayor O'Connell for some, quote, incredibly productive conversations. I followed up with the mayor after that was said, and he simply reiterated that Metro produced a lot of questions. I think we all know how hard the mayor works to serve all his various masters, so to speak. And I didn't really get any sense that those productive conversations involved any specifics of this scheme.
After watching the press conference, it does seem like the state is very excited about this project. Does it sound like to you Metro Council members feel the same way?
Well, I reached out to the 2 who will be most directly affected and asked them to send along their thoughts. Jacob Coupin, the council member for District 19, which includes downtown, sent along the following. Nashville has made clear multimodal connectivity is a priority. While I am disappointed that the Boring Company initiative seems to be in motion without city coordination, I will thoughtfully evaluate this proposal to ensure that this benefits those who call Nashville home, who work in the city, as well as our great visitors, while adequately addressing concerns and challenges. I have many questions and look forward to learning more. Councilmember Russ Bradford, who represents District 13, where the airport is located, sent us a statement saying he strongly opposes the project, and he has questions about its ecological impact as well as its benefit to Nashvillians. He wrote, "As a council member, my commitment is to the people of my community, especially those whose voices are too often ignored in decisions like these. I will continue to advocate for infrastructure investments that are community-driven, fiscally responsible, environmentally sound, and focused on equity. I urge city, state, and airport leadership to rethink this project and realign our priorities with the real everyday needs of our residents."
Speaking of ecological concerns, David, you have done some very extensive work reporting on Elon Musk and these tunnels for CityCast Las Vegas. In 2021, the Clark County Commission, which governs the Las Vegas Strip, voted to allow the Boring Company to create a loop of tunnels under the convention center to move people via Tesla from one side of the building to the other. Vegas City Council then voted to allow an expansion of these tunnels to 68 miles of additional locations, including the airport. And I just got to ask the blunt question here. How long did it take for people to notice that there was toxic sludge in the tunnels?
Oh, the toxic sludge. So this was some race to the finish line reporting from both Bloomberg and Fortune. Bloomberg got over the finish line first, but Fortune had been doing a lot of extensive research too, all stemming from a bunch of OSHA complaints that resulted in fines. Apparently, the chemicals that they were using in the tunneling process under the Las Vegas Convention Center, it mixed with the groundwater that they tapped into, and the systems that they were using, like a mining operation with the conveyor belt that had no guardrails, were splashing off and hitting the workers, causing second and third degree burns to people's hands, to their ankles, and in at least one instance, there was reports of a man whose face was permanently scarred from the splash up of this toxic sludge. We all read that story and was like, I didn't even know they had started digging under the Las Vegas Convention Center because, it's underground. But they did have a storage facility that was above ground. It broke. The OSHA report said that had there been any worker nearby, they would have been killed. There was some sort of mystery cleanup. No one to this day, we've done public record requests, know how that got cleaned up. But then a couple of months after all that reporting, I happened to notice about a mile from my house that a pen that had been used for a construction project, like on the street, was now covered in mounds of wet material. And so I called my county commissioner and I said, is that part of the same project, or is someone else dumping stuff there? Long story short, we were the first to break the news at CityCast that they were storing waste materials from the Boring Project in the middle of a retail center with restaurants less than 50 feet away. The people who actually had a permit to run that area got a fine. Boring Company got a fine for the OSHA violations. It was about $100,000 plus. They are, to my understanding, still fighting it, denying that any of that happened, that any of the workers were hurt.
Have these environmental and worker safety concerns slowed the drilling process at all?
I don't know. Very little is known because this is considered to be a private project at no cost to taxpayer money, which they keep telling us over and over again as well here. Please put a pin in that and ask me about it in a minute. It really has taken a long time to open up new stations. So the whole thing was supposed to be a closed circuit loop under our major convention center, which is a big space. And so much of the millions of rides that they have mentioned are like maybe a couple of 100 feet or yards. It really is short trips. And then they added Resorts World, which is a casino on the Strip, then Westgate, which is right next door to the convention center. Part of the delay of opening up the Westgate, we found out from our reporting, is that the fire department wouldn't sign off on their plan, and Tesla asked for what's essentially an exemption from all standard fire codes and county ordinances regarding fire safety. It's so much in the dark, Marie. I wish I could tell you more, but the transparency about this project is as dark as those tunnels would be without the fancy lights. I'm going to say this, Marie, we had a world-renowned traffic plan engineer expert who has a very popular YouTube channel. It's called City Nerd. He's amazing. And he gave a very harsh assessment of this. It says that in engineering worlds, this is not considered to be a transit system. They don't have a capacity to even make a blip on any kind of reasonable transportation alternative. And I said, Ray, say one nice thing about this project. And he said, the lights are phenomenally pretty. So you're getting that at no cost to taxpayers.
Whitney, let's talk about the environmental impacts here. Did you get a sense in your reporting that anyone has considered these before making this announcement?
Well, what I learned is that, sadly, the state of Tennessee doesn't require any NEPA or National Environmental Policy Act review process studies in order to do a project like this, unless the project is receiving federal funding, which, U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy at the press conference did mention that they would need to cross T's and dot I's at federal DOT. So is the federal government involved? We don't know, ? But it's at no cost to taxpayers. So I would assume that includes federal taxpayers as well. I also got the sense, though, that any studies or reviews that are done in Tennessee tend to be less about protections and more about, quote, checking boxes was the phrase that was used to me. One place where the boring company will have to be accountable is when it comes to relocating the dirt that will be dug up for the tunnel. So you can't just dig up dirt from an urban setting and go and put it someplace else that doesn't have the same background contaminants. We just went through something similar when trying to relocate the dirt from the new stadium. Folks up in Bordeaux rejected the idea of adding it to their landfill. And given all the concerns, around Middle Tennessee about landfill space and toxicity, especially when it comes to the Duck River, I think finding a taker for the dirt that we now know from reporting that Figler and others have done might be full of unknown sludge, that could pose a problem.
It's very easy to be cynical about all this.
Yes.
And I'm a very glass half full kind of person. So let's try to look at it with a positive spin. What are some of the benefits that the tunnel network could bring to Nashville?
Well, obviously, if it works, less traffic of tourists driving from the airport to downtown. Maybe some folks just coming here to ride in the tunnel because they like fancy lights.
Or they've never been in a car driven by another person before. That's
Cars
kind of
are
exciting.
Big corporation, we could attract more big corporations here because they like the bells and whistles, and we're now, a technologically advanced city. Maybe we'd get more conventions. We definitely heard from Stephanie Coleman at the Chamber of Commerce and Dee Patel from the Hermitage Hotel that they're kind of excited about that aspect of it. And then it feels like this is just, they're opening a door to a network of tunnels going all over Nashville, into all of our neighborhoods.
I just want to be able to take a train to Atlanta.
Okay.
That's all I keep saying this. Remember that amazing little cafe you discovered last summer with the perfect latte and crazy view? Or that sweet hiking spot your friend told you about, but you can't remember the name? Well, with Overlook Maps, special places never get lost again. Create personal lists of places you've been and want to go. Build your must-visit list for your next vacation, your foodie favorites for date nights, or your weekend getaways when you need to escape. Share your favorite hidden gems with friends and family, or go on and keep your secret spots completely private. Planning a trip with friends? Create a shared list where everyone can add their ideas. Visiting a new city? Check out lists from locals who know the real gems, not just the tourist traps. And here's the best part, folks. No ads cluttering your lists. No one selling your data to advertisers. Just your personal collection of amazing places, organized exactly how you want them. Overlook Maps. Collect, organize, and share the places that matter to you. Download free at overlookmaps.com and check out overlookmaps.com/Nashville to see some of our lists and great spots on a map and in your pocket. Your places, your way. David, how is the tunnel construction impacting everyday life in Vegas? Are there just holes everywhere? What's happening?
We don't know that's the thing. There are really big mining-like holes in the middle of the city landscape, but we're at the desert and we have big open lots anyway. So there's one major one across from what used to be known as the Hard Rock Hotel. I know Whitney is familiar with that spot.
Big fan.
Now called the Virgin Hotel, owned by Virgin Richard Branson and...
Well, then Marie can't stay there.
Ouch.
I was about to sing that to you, but yes.
There's another one that's about 2 blocks down from another spot that Whitney knows very much about called the Double Down Saloon, home of ass juice.
Will you stop outing our life together in Vegas over the last 25 years?
It's a 30-year plus old punk rock bar in Las Vegas and a dispensary, and it's close to the airport, and that's ultimately where they're going to wind up because we talked to the head of our airport division, and she said there's basically no possible way that they're going to be allowed to put tunnels of single file cars underneath the airport, but it'll come up close and then they could drive in and pick people up like any other Tesla picks up people at the Uber Lyft station. They haven't started construction of the tunnel to the airport yet. That's just a pipe dream. And, the 68 miles goes throughout the valley. So yes, it's into the city of Las Vegas proper, but also they have plans to bring it to the airport, to Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders play, in the medical district to UNLV, the school. So it hasn't affected the locals yet at all. It hasn't alleviated, to my knowledge, one bit of traffic, and it is mostly used by conventioners who are staying at the aforementioned hotels.
I was going to ask, are the locals using this? No.
People from the CityCast team went to go ride on it just because sometimes they have conventions of interest to us. And, they called it mid. They said, it's better than walking. You hop in a car, but it takes about the same amount of time because you have to kind of wait in a queue. And then you get into the car with a couple of other people and then they drive you to the other side of the convention center. And it was okay. I personally am not going to go in it. There's no reason for me to go in it. First of all, it's not practical for me. I don't ever need it. I could walk probably faster than it could drive me to the locations it currently has. I'm not going to drive over there just to ride in a colorful Uber and at 35 miles an hour, which is their top speed.
Right. Well, we want to get into those details.
Yeah.
But I do also let's back it up a little bit. Let's back up that drill bore bit thing.
Beep, beep.
Because,
beep.
There in Vegas, you've got some functioning tunnels, but we've got some construction challenges here that the Boring Company has not faced before. And in fact, Steve Davis, the president of Boring Company, didn't allude to those. He came right out and said them during the press conference. He said that Nashville is a, quote, tough place to tunnel with, quote, extremely hard rock, like way harder than it should be. And then he said, quote, but we'll work through that.
We're engineers. There's nothing we can't solve.
And of course, we can't make it through this episode without also giving a shout out to Nashville Scene columnist and Nashville's finest historian, Betsy Phillips, whose op-ed this week in the Nashville Scene called our rock Swiss cheese rock under the city, is how she referred to it. It's limestone and it's got thin soil. And Betsy dug up a couple examples of construction mishaps due to the Swiss cheese rock's instability, like the collapse of the 8th Avenue South Reservoir in 1912. And then there was this confusing process around the dam that created Percy Priest Lake. So they dammed it thinking it would cover a certain amount of land and a town. But when the water filled up, it didn't go where they thought it was going to go because it just kind of went down into the holes in the Swiss cheese rock. And I loved Betsy's question. She asked, where exactly? I don't know. Does anyone? But hey, it's not like Elon and the state are putting a tunnel in near Percy Priest. Oh, wait. End quote.
But the real question here is, why would the state want to build this instead of just a light rail?
Yeah, David, Vegas had a whole frickin' monorail. Why are we focused now on tunnels instead of just expanding your delightful monorail?
Okay.
Why can't we have a monorail?
I have a couple of...
We want a monorail.
I have a couple of funny things to tell you about this. So the short answer is that expense. Each new mile of monorail is apparently cost prohibitive. There was a non-compete clause with it as well, which meant that the Boring Tunnel couldn't even go to different places and stuff. And so the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority at public expense, bought the monorail. And has suggested that once they decommission the cars on the monorail, which is still operational and actually quite useful now, they finally figured out a way to maximize the ridership. But once it gets decommissioned because they can't replace the parts anymore, whatever, they're going to give it to the Boring Company so you could have Tesla tunnels driving underground and Tesla tunnels driving above ground on the monorail tracks. And that's just one part of the public expense, which I really want to get to because the taxpayer part.
We are going to get to that right after we take this break. But I'm so glad that we just defined the American dream as cars above you, cars below you.
And cars next to you. Here I am stuck in the middle with you.
Let's talk about how this system is supposed to work. David, it's just Teslas driving underground, right?
Yes. Manned Teslas.
How much does it cost to take a trip? Is it cheaper than an Uber?
Yes. But it goes a very, very short distance now. Those are free, but subsidized by, wait for it, taxpayer money.
Dun, 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 dun.
Actually, public funds. And so it comes off of taxes of hotel rooms. At any rate, we gave the Boring Company somewhere between 55 and 70, maybe $80 million in public funds to operate the system. They paid for it. Didn't cost us anything to build it, but we did give them, tens of millions of dollars to operate it.
I will point out that a lot of people kept talking about how we'll be able to get from the airport to downtown in 8 minutes. So that's like 8 to 10 miles, depending on where they dig this thing, how far around Percy Priest and the airport they have to go. How fast do these cars go? Do they go like 80 miles an hour?
Well, when it was first pitched, it was something like 120 miles an hour was the fancy video. We have pretty much tracked it. It tops out at about 40 miles an hour. The average speed is 35 miles an hour. And if you hit curves or you hit traffic, because there's also traffic when you have sort of a pileup because it's single file. There's no getting around a car. So if a car breaks down, you're pretty much got a backed up line. And there have been a lot of questions, and this is where that fire safety stuff comes in. Like, what are the exit points? How do you get out people who are in wheelchairs or who have other disabilities and stuff? They have contingency plans in place. But yeah, basic math, if any reporters ask basic math, I would say that based on the Vegas model, it would be impossible to get from your airport to the downtown area in 8 minutes. We don't think that there's been any major incidences down there. They got rid of the one licensing board that they would have had to report those to. We're now relying on self-reporting. The head of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority said it's totally safe. The worst thing that's happened down there was a fender bender, he said. I asked if he could show us the list. I did a public records request. That never came. I guess you don't count the toxic sludge incidents as being the worst thing that happened down there. But okay, whatever. We don't know what's going on down there.
It's all a secret.
Well, it's a private company.
Right.
Which doesn't cost taxpayers any money.
No money.
Except, let me add this one other point. We also gave away all the underground state or municipal owned rights of way for free. And all the taxes that would come on those right of ways are also now lost forever. So yes, it is free to the company to use the land, and that is a giveaway. So I don't know if that counts as being no cost to taxpayers. Also, there's been some really good reporting about how they really can't keep those tunnels secure, and a lot of kids have been going down there with their skateboards and whatnot, and cars have been figuring out ways to kind of access it, to kind of cruise around because it's fun for them too.
There is going to be a Nissan Altima in that tunnel in Nashville within the first 12 hours. You mark my words.
Okay, back in 2016, the Boring Company announced a Hyperloop tunnel in Los Angeles that never came to fruition due to residents' concerns about environmental damage. They've also tried and failed to start digging in Chicago and D.C. Vegas was the first place to say yes. David, what made it appealing to your elected officials? And do you see similarities between your city and Nashville that might have made us the right place for this next big dig?
What made it appealing to our elected officials is that, number one, we were sort of misled that this was just a people mover. So there wasn't really a large need for approval or concern or environmental studies or anything. And then when they decided they wanted to expand it, which our reporting showed was pretty much from the get-go, that was always the plan, they kind of backed our city officials into a corner. There were a lot of questions, but then this whole thing about, but it's free. And it's going to alleviate traffic, and nobody questioned it. It was very, very weird. And then, I think a lot of the hotels on the Strip have long been looking for ways to get people directly from the airport to their hotel, like direct line. I think that the resort industry really kind of pushed it. Certainly our mayor of the city of Las Vegas said that she, on public record, said, I don't think this is a safe project. It's certainly not efficient. It seems a little, I'm putting words in her mouth, but basically scammy. But the casinos don't want to be left out if it actually does work. So let's let it roll. If it even happens, it's like low risk for us.
And obviously anybody who lives here in Nashville can hear a lot of things in there that ring true here, especially as far as hotels and downtown interests.
Okay, assuming this is going to happen, or at least start happening, whether we want it or not, Whitney, is there anything Nashville leaders can do to ensure our city stays safe during the process?
Metro should have control over the permitting process, at least for air and stormwater. Those are two areas that have been delegated to Metro. And according to my sources, those types of permits need to be filed pretty early. In that press conference, they're like, and we're going to start digging tomorrow. But I went to go look and see if any permits had been pulled. I did not see any, and that's public record. So if anybody at home is interested in keeping an eye on this, you can go to data.nashville.gov. And then, despite our crippling fears that if we ever push back against the state, they're going to punish us, I am hoping that Metro leaders will be very diligent and strict about their use of, to Figler's point, Metro resources, Metro land, places within the city that they're going to just maybe want for free. I hope our leaders will be diligent in protecting those and ensuring that if we do need to give them up, that we get something in return, and that they especially aren't turned into toxic sludge pits that could harm us or our beloved tourists, honestly.
David, overall, what effect has the Boring Company had on life in Vegas? At the very least, has traffic gotten better?
Okay, so no, traffic has not been affected one iota yet.
Cool.
And it's only, 6 years, so maybe it'll happen. But what Whitney was saying was resonating so hard. And I really encourage, and this isn't like self-aggrandizing, I really encourage anyone who is interested in this project, any elected official who's responsible for any degree of oversight, to read our ProPublica article, which was poo-pooed immediately by the Convention and Visitors Authority as being misleading and inaccurate. But when asked what was misleading or inaccurate, they just said the whole thing. But stormwater, the water regulation issues, that's where we found the bulk of violations, that they were pouring stuff without the proper permits, that they were pouring in ways that they weren't supposed to directly into our sewage system. Also, they were actually operating without pulling the permits and asked for forgiveness afterwards. And there were staff officials within the county government who were like, when do we just shut down this project? Because they've been operating without permits. They haven't been following any of their transport plans. They're dumping dirt on our streets. They're shutting down the freeway because a load dropped down. We don't know what's in this stuff. And they just died at the highest levels of county leadership. And so, water, dirt, air, transport issues, these are the things that can be regulated within your city, and the things that absolutely need to be held to the highest standards, because like Las Vegas, no environmental impact study was required. And the numbers are always baked because they're just, If every Tesla was working all day, back to back, without stopping, that's how they hit the numbers that they say here in Las Vegas. There's no possible way that those numbers have any connection to the reality of how many people are pushed through those tunnels at any given time, given the current setup. Now, can it be adjusted? Is there a possibility that they could utilize this tunnel system with some manner of vehicle underground that could do all the things that they've been promising all along? It hasn't happened in Vegas yet, but I mean, that is the hope that everyone is holding out for.
Nash Vegas, baby.
Good luck.
Okay, then I'm going to need everyone to place their bets now. Will this tunnel actually be built and completed, and in what year? David.
Because Nashville is so much like Las Vegas, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say that you will be able to drive in a car that's not above ground from the airport to somewhere downtown by 2029.
Okay. I'm going to say that they're going to dig a pit, and then someone is going to fall into the pit, and then they will write a song about falling into the pit, and it will become a massive local hit. And eventually we will have a famous tiny horse that will appear as a hologram, and we will forget all about this boondoggle, and it will never be completed.
My theory is, it's never going to get built because I just saw Jurassic Park, the latest one. Because we know that, Tennessee was underwater during the prehistoric era. So we're going to find a dinosaur that has never been discovered before.
Another saber-toothed tiger is going to be down there.
Please. And then we're going to have to stop and do a full archaeological search.
Wait, do you have antiquities buried under the ground or indigenous?
Yeah, Nashville was originally an indigenous American metropolis.
Somehow we bypassed that federal act because they claim that they haven't run into a single bone under the ground.
Oh.
We got a guy in this town named Albert Bender who's going to be showing up. Figler, thank you so much for joining us for this.
I love it, and I want to get to the bottom someday of Nash Vegas as a concept, and I think we should have a two-city talk about this, because I think it affects both of us in a lot of ways.
We need some regular check-ins and accountability for sure.
Thank you. That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!